It's Red Eye Radio. Talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios. For Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Dan Mandis, this is Red Eye Radio.
And appreciate you tuning in. We are live. It is Saturday morning, August 16th, and usually it's a tape on Saturday mornings. We are live this morning on the network. Of course, we wanted to have live coverage, as Red Eye Radio often does, when there's incredibly important news to talk about. And of course, as you folks know, we had the Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin meeting in Alaska, and so we are going to be covering that and a whole lot more. The phone lines, by the way, are open. 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. I am a morning host in Nashville, Tennessee on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And for tonight only, you can call the radio show or you can utilize our text line that we use here in Nashville, Tennessee. If you don't want to call, but you do want to text in your thoughts, that is open as well. 615-737-9986. That is the text line. If you have something to say, but you don't want to call in, I'm reading those text messages as well. Again, 615-737-9986. So, what did we find out about the meeting between President Trump and Vladimir Putin? Who won, who lost? It depends on who you talk to. It depends on if you're a never Trumper versus a Donald Trump supporter. Here's the good news. The good news is that they didn't storm out scowling. That's the good news. But they also didn't come out with a deal yet. But we knew that there wouldn't be a deal. We knew that Trump was going to go in, have this meeting with Vladimir Putin, and then Trump, of course, has to go off and he's got to talk to Vladimir Zelinskyy. So you've got all of these people, and they're mainly on the left. And they're saying, oh, well, Donald Trump obviously lost because he came out and they hadn't hammered out a deal. Well, of course not. Because he's got to now go to Vladimir Zelinskyy of Ukraine so that they can try and, figure out what is doable and what is not. They had a 3-hour discussion. It seems like a good discussion. Donald Trump said this in the minutes following the meeting with Vladimir Putin. Listen.
Just to put it very quickly, I'm going to start making a few phone calls and tell them what happened.
Yep.
But we had an extremely productive meeting, and many points were agreed to. There are just a very few that are left. Some are not that significant. One is probably the most significant. But we have a very good chance of getting there. We didn't get there, but we have a very good chance of getting there. I would like to thank President Putin and his entire team.
Right. They do say, Donald Trump saying, and both Trump and Vladimir Putin said that progress was made. They had 3 hours of discussion. The resulting press conference lasted all of 12 minutes. Now, some are trying to make a big deal over the fact that at that press conference, Vladimir Putin did speak longer. He spoke in Russian through an interpreter, so the audio is horrible. I'm not going to play that. But basically, Putin, he played nice. And one thing that Putin wanted to know was, what is in it for Russia? So if Putin is going to agree to a ceasefire, if Vladimir Putin is going to agree to some sort of a peace deal, he wants to know what's in it for Russia, as Vladimir Putin would do. He said that a good business relationship with America could expedite things. This is Fox News analyst Edward Lawrence right after the presser.
Russian President Vladimir Putin, in his statement there, made a business pitch to the president. He came out and said that this agreement could create a business partnership with the United States. The Russian president went on to say he specifically mentioned the space industry where they could do some business. Also, he talked about high tech and digital trade going on here. Now, that could be a little self-serving. I'm sure the Russian president is looking at China. They're looking at the United States and seeing those advanced chips that are going to China. They're lesser advanced than we have here in the U.S., but still advanced AI chips. They're probably trying to get in on some of that. But the Russian president obviously would like to have a business relationship with the United States.
Yeah, Russia, Vladimir Putin, they've been watching Trump do all of these deals with other countries. His economy is hurting, and it is hurting badly. He also, by the way, Putin also said that relations between Russia and America were not good. Clearly, they're not good. Lowest point, he says, since the Cold War. And so Putin says that he does want to continue that dialogue. He said the negotiations were useful. But here's the thing about Vladimir Putin. And I know that you folks know this. You can't trust him. Simply put.
It was interesting when he said that our economy is growing at 20%. You saw a smirk a little bit from President Trump because many experts believe that's just not simply the case. But it was interesting about this business pitch. Now, we did not hear anything about a land swap, which is going into this. That's one of the things that possibly was on the table. And it's interesting with that land swap because if you look at a map of what the area that Russia controls in Ukraine, that's where the rare earth mineral mines are. And so if the U.S. starts swapping some of that territory, or if Ukraine starts swapping some of that territory, then there could be some issue related to the joint partnership that the U.S. has with Ukraine. We have a 50-50 deal on any future projects to mine some of that rare earth mineral. So there's a lot of global complexity going on with these talks back here. But again, President Trump says we're not quite there yet, which is the bottom line.
Yeah, and that is the bottom line, but they're on their way. Now, here's the deal. As I just said, can you really trust Vladimir Putin with anything? Because I know that I'm coming off more than likely here on this Saturday morning live broadcast. I'm very excited about the possibility of peace, but I'm also a realist. I'm very pragmatic. And I know that Donald Trump has said many, many times that he has these beautiful conversations. He has these beautiful conversations with Vladimir Putin. And then, of course, hours later, he's bombing the living crap out of Ukraine. So you can't trust what Vladimir Putin has to say. You simply can't. As a matter of fact, one of the things is, as we're live here on Saturday morning, one of the things that we are definitely looking at and watching is, will there be any bombing activity overnight? Maybe during Red Eye Radio over the next 5 hours. Because remember what Zelinskyy did. Vladimir Zelinskyy, as Putin was preparing to head to Alaska, he bombed the living crap out of Russia, clearly as a message to Vladimir Putin. And Putin, by the way, did the same thing a couple of weeks ago, or maybe it was a month ago now, when Putin's team was going to meet with Donald Trump's team. I forget where that was, but there has been a lot of rockets. There have been a lot of drones. There have been thousands, hundreds of thousands that have been killed in this war. Now, President Donald Trump, he had an interview with Sean Hannity after the press conference, and a lot was said, and I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm a Donald Trump supporter. A lot of the things that the president said has been said many times before, but he did have a few useful things to say with the Fox News host, and he says that he does want this done.
We had a very good meeting today, but we'll see. I mean, it's you have to get a deal. We agreed on a lot of points. I want to see people stop dying.
Yeah, and again, we've been doing this for 3 years now? We've had hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions. I got to look it up exactly how many people have been killed in the Russia-Ukraine war. I'll tell you what, it keeps going up, and Trump, he's told Hannity he's tired of the killing. He's tired of the dying.
Look, as far as I'm concerned, there's no deal until there's a deal, but we did make a lot of progress.
So the president says that they're working their way towards progress, and there's a few things that are sticking points. And more than likely, you folks know what those sticking points are. I'm going to talk about what those sticking points are here in a moment. The president, though, says that he does have a lot to do, including he's got to go back, as I mentioned, he's got to go back. He's got to go to Zelinskyy, Vladimir Zelinskyy, Ukraine, and also NATO, and everybody's got to just regroup and figure out what they want to do next.
I guess somebody's going to go public with it. They'll figure it out. But no, I don't want to do that. I want to see if we can get it done. It's not a done deal at all. Mm-hmm. And Ukraine has to agree. I mean, President Zelinskyy has to agree.
Yeah, one of the things, and Hannity Trump was answering the question, what are the main sticking points? And Trump basically said that there is one main sticking point. Now, I believe that sticking point is land. So you've got Crimea, right, in Ukraine, that Vladimir Putin and Russia took over years ago when Obama was in power. And now you've got some regions of Ukraine right there on the border with Russia that Russia has taken over as well. And so one of the things that Putin wants is he wants the land that he's conquered. And Zelinskyy is like, no way are we giving up land. We're just simply not going to do it. So you've got both sides, and they really have their lines in the sand. Their lines in the sand have been drawn, and Zelinskyy swears up and down he is not going to give up any land. And Vladimir Putin is basically saying the same thing, and Putin also wants a heck of a lot more as well. So both sides do have their lines drawn in the sand or, deal breakers.
Now it's really up to President Zelenskyy to get it done. And I would also say the European nations, they have to get involved a little bit. But it's up to President Zelenskyy. I think we are, and if they'd like, I'll be at that next meeting. They're going to set up a meeting now between President Zelenskyy and President Putin. And myself, I guess, I didn't ask you about it. Not that I want to be there, but I want to make sure it gets done. And we have a pretty good chance of getting it done.
Well, the president sounds very optimistic. Other people don't sound as optimistic. I would say this. There's a lot of people that always like to count Donald Trump out, but he has managed to pull off some really incredible things. So we'll have to see where this goes. But it sounds like Trump, listening to that statement, was able to get some concessions out of Vladimir Putin and Russia. Now, what they are, nobody really knows, except for Trump's team and Putin's team. But remember what each side wants, and it's a lot. Ukraine wants all of their land back, including, by the way, Crimea. Ukraine also wants a ceasefire. Russia says no, because a ceasefire would give Ukraine the ability to, reload and bolster their defenses. So a ceasefire, according to Russia, would actually give a battleground advantage to Ukraine. Russia has said the only way that they would agree to a ceasefire is if Ukraine pulled out of those areas that Russia have said that they've conquered in eastern Ukraine. So there's no way that Ukraine, again, is going to give that up. Ukraine, of course, as you know, wants to be in NATO, and Russia says absolutely not. Ukraine wants security guarantees to stave off any future attacks, and Russia doesn't want Ukraine to have any type of help from the international community. So obviously, there is a ton here. And there's a lot more, by the way.
If you had to grade it on a scale of 1 to 10?
So I think the meeting was a 10 in the sense that we got along great. And it's good when, two big powers get along.
Right. But again, everybody gets along. But I will reiterate, and you're probably going to hear me say this a few times tonight, friends. And that is that Donald Trump has always said they have big, beautiful conversations. And then Vladimir Putin gets off the phone and starts bombing the living daylights out of Ukraine. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in the next 24 hours. Right after the meeting, then the press conference, everybody went their separate ways. They had actually had some afternoon, evening things planned, some breakout sessions, if you will. But they just decided, you know what, there's no point to having more meetings because Trump and Putin and their respective teams, they had all the conversations that they needed to have. And so now what's next? Well, who knows? It could be really good or it could be really bad.
Based on today, when you talk to Vladimir Zelinskyy, what's your advice to...
Make a deal.
Make the deal.
Got to make a deal, yeah.
Yeah, that is one of the headlines out of the news today. Donald Trump telling Zelinskyy, you need to make a deal. I still believe that Putin holds all the cards because Putin can fight either by himself, as you may or may not know, but Putin has also been getting fighters from North Korea. And so Putin, he doesn't care about the number of Russians dead. He just doesn't. He cares about Russia's economy. He cares about his own power. He cares about his own legacy. And Zelinskyy, he's not going to be able to operate without NATO. And he's not going to be able to operate without the United States. And NATO now, these days, buying weapons from the United States and then delivering them to Ukraine. But ultimately, Vladimir Putin can fight on his own. Zelinskyy can't. So the power move, the guy that holds all the power, is indeed Vladimir Putin and Russia. But also remember that Putin, he operates at a glacial pace. Really slow. Basically what he likes to do, and this is what has been angering Donald Trump for so long, is that he's been trying to negotiate with Putin, but Putin just, it's like he's trying to run out the clock is what he tries to do. And that's when Donald Trump gets really, really angry. So there's a lot to talk about. Again, that text line is open, 615-737-9986. Phone lines are open as well. Your phone calls always welcome, 866-90-RED-EYE.
Hey there, Hope Savara here with Mother Trucker Yoga, and this is your health tip of the day. Healthy driver, healthy diesel, powered by House. Neck strain can really be a pain, especially after long hours behind the wheel. Did you know neck pain affects nearly 70% of drivers at some point in their career? So let's loosen things up. Sit tall and tip your head to your right shoulder. Now pull your left shoulder down gently and hold for 10 seconds. Switch sides, left ear to left shoulder, right shoulder pulls down and hold for 10. Now roll your shoulders 5 big circles forward and 5 back. Open your mouth wide and stretch your jaw. Hold for 10. Close and repeat that 2 more times. Finally, take a deep breath in through your nose, pause, and exhale through your mouth. There you go. Small, simple changes lead to big results so that you can feel good again. Visit mothertruckeryoga.com and houseproducts.com for more info.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
Red Eye Radio. We are live on Saturday morning. It is August 16th, a special live broadcast this morning, and we are covering a number of different topics, including, of course, obviously, the meeting with Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. I do have the phone lines open, 866-90-RED-EYE. Also, the text line that I use for Nashville, I do have that open as well. If you don't want to call, but you want to text in, 615-737-9986 for tonight only. We've done that before. From Arizona, 6789 says, Dan, why do you think Trump had his suit coat unbuttoned when he met Putin on that red carpet? He says, I thought it made him look kind of sloppy next to Vladimir Putin. Maybe he was trying to look friendly. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't notice that Trump did not have his suit coat unbuttoned. What I noticed about that was obviously the military flyover. As he and Putin were on the red carpet, that was a total boss move. I loved that. We'll return next, right here on Red Eye Radio.
Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios. Now, for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, here is Dan Mandis.
And the phone number, 866-90-RED-EYE. We are live here on Saturday morning, a rare Saturday morning broadcast, a live broadcast, but whenever news dictates that we have a live program here on a Saturday morning, we do it. And of course, we have just had the Donald Trump-Vladimir Putin meeting over the Russia-Ukraine war. That, of course, that meeting is now well over, but we are live to talk about that and a number of different things. So, again, the phone lines are open, 866-90-RED-EYE. Also, my text line is open for tonight only on Red Eye, 615-737-9986. And I don't know what affiliates take the show on Saturday morning. The schedule is kind of crazy on the weekends. But if you're listening to our affiliate, WMAL in Washington, D.C., I'm specifically asking that you call in to let me know how the streets of Washington, D.C. are right now with all the National Guard. I want to know how it's going out there. I am in Nashville, Tennessee. I host a morning show in Nashville, Tennessee on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You can find out more about me on the socials. Follow me on the socials at Dan Mandis Show. And let's see here. I want to say hello to Dan in Fayetteville, North Carolina on Red Eye Radio. Hey, Dan, how are you?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, hello, Dan. Hey, look, I got a little bit of heartburn with Donald Trump. I voted for him 3 times. I contributed a lot of my military pension to his campaign and the Republican National Committee. And I belong to a church that originates out of Western Ukraine. And yet I'm very angry that Donald Trump has promised that if he cannot get a ceasefire, or at least a date for a ceasefire, he's going to start sanctions against Russia, and nothing happens. And I also don't like it that he insists that Ukraine cannot ever be part of NATO. I think that's insanity, and I'm just so angry about this, and it really bothers the hell out of me. So,
I can tell you're upset, Dan. Here's what I would say to that, is that he does have a plan B and a plan C. One of the things that I've noticed about Donald Trump is that he really, really, really wants to strike a deal. He knows that if he implements these sanctions, like right now, like they storm out of that meeting to the podium and he announces, hardcore sanctions against Russia, he knows that that is not going to lead to a ceasefire or a peace agreement. He knows that that's not going to. So what his pattern has always been is he is going to do his best to try to talk to Vladimir Zelinskyy, and see if they can get in the ballpark. And then the three of them get together and see if they can hammer out a deal. I think that is what Donald Trump is doing. But I totally get it. I understand. And I do appreciate your call here on Red Eye Radio. Real quick, Roger is in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Hey, Roger, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing fine this morning. A little past my bedtime.
Yeah, you and me both,
okay,
man.
Well, I appreciate you standing on the air tonight, and I understand the importance of you standing on the air because the summit in Alaska, where I spent 21 years, I know about the location of that summit, okay? Mm-hmm. And it's a very secure location. And my comment tonight has to do with Mr. Putin, number one atheist communist in the world, mm-hmm. okay, who has a lot of blood on his hands. Over 1 million deaths in Ukraine and in Russia, both military and civilian. That makes Putin a war criminal in everybody's books that pay attention. And as such, while he's on American soil, I don't understand why President Trump has been so patient with him. I don't understand why, with as much security as is on that joint base there in Anchorage, I don't understand why Putin has not already been arrested as a war criminal and handed over to the International World Court.
Actually, that's what Vladimir Zelenskyy, that's one of the things that Zelinskyy wants. And I believe that he is a war criminal as well. I do. I think that what Donald Trump is trying to do and what the world is trying to do and what NATO and the European Union, I think what they're obviously clearly trying to do is find some sort of an agreement here, find some sort of a common ground so that we can all just move on for lasting peace. That's obviously what he is trying to do, what Donald Trump is trying to do. And that's why, for example, and Roger, thank you for your call and thank you for your service. Part of what I think needs to be addressed is that, yes, I know. And all the Trump haters out there have been saying for, the last, Trump has been in office for 7-8 months now. He said that he was going to solve this on day one. First day in office, everybody always, I know. And I will fully admit, as a guy who, like you, Roger, I believe it was you, said that you voted for Donald Trump 3 times. I think maybe that was a previous caller. But bottom line is, if you voted for Donald Trump 3 times, that was a broken promise. When Trump said that he would have this settled on day one, that is a broken promise. But let me ask you this question. What is the alternative? I mean, obviously, he has not been arrested as a war criminal, Vladimir Putin. But you have so many people out there that are tearing into Donald Trump for meeting with Vladimir Putin. Let me play an audio bite for you. And again, Roger, I do appreciate the call. This was on MSNBC. Let me see if I can find it real quick. This is on MSNBC. Yes, here it is. Nicole Wallace. One of my favorite nut jobs over there on MSNBC. So Nicole Wallace, she took issue with Donald Trump being there at all. And this ties into the last caller's comments.
But you know that any day Russia could bomb anywhere in Ukraine. I mean, it's watching them scrape and struggle to get an American president who supported them to give them all the weapons they needed to go toe-to-toe with Russia. And to see all that potentially erased by an American president who just doesn't give a shit about democracy. He doesn't care about our allies. He doesn't care about a democratic ally's sovereignty.
So can I ask Nicole Wallace a question? What is the alternative? What is the alternative? If the president doesn't give a crap, then why is he spending so much time trying to get this done? He could be working on our economy. He could be working on more deportations, anything else domestically. But I would make mention to Nicole Wallace that the president drops everything and he goes to Alaska at a moment's notice because, I don't know, according to Nicole Wallace, he doesn't give a crap. I mean, I realize that idiocy is, the name of it's what happens over there at MSNBC, just idiocy. But for her to say that the president doesn't give a crap makes absolutely no sense when you compare it to the actions of President Donald Trump. Do you know, I would say to Nicole Wallace, do you know who didn't give a crap? Joe Biden. Joe Biden didn't give a crap. Why? Because all Joe Biden did was cut checks. No solution seeking. All he did was cut checks, and it was your money and my money that was paying for all of that weaponry. So not only, I would say to Nicole Wallace, dim bulb that she is that Donald Trump actually does care about this. You know what he cares about? Donald Trump cares about ending this war because so many people have died on both sides. That's number one. He is tired of the killing. He's tired of the dying. That's number one. Number two, he cares about your money. He cares about my money. He cares about the taxpayers of America paying for all of that weaponry that was literally given to Ukraine. Not to mention all of the aid that was also given to Ukraine. And so now what Donald Trump has done is he is forcing NATO to buy our weaponry so we are no longer footing the bill. So Donald Trump cares a heck of a lot more about this war than Joe Biden did or does. Because again, all Biden did was cut checks. It didn't meet with Vladimir Putin, did make a phone call. His week A sanctions emboldened Vladimir Putin, as did, by the way, the failed pullout of Afghanistan. There was a moment, by the way, during the press conference. Let me see if I can find, I have so much audio on this. Yeah. Vladimir Putin actually said this, that Donald Trump was right, that if he were president, that this war never would have happened. Because remember when this war happened? This war happened right, the Russian president was putting troops on the border with Ukraine. Trump is out of office. Failed pullout of Afghanistan has happened. And then it's clear that the American president is a massive and complete failure. And Donald Trump often says that if he was president, this never would have happened. And I actually agree with Donald Trump. And you know who else does? Vladimir Putin.
And in the end, I would like to add one more thing. I'd like to remind you that in 2022, during the last contact with the previous administration, I tried to convince my previous American colleague that the situation should not be brought to the point of no return when it would come to hostilities. And I said it quite directly back then that it's a big mistake. Today, when President Trump saying that if he was the president back then, there will be no war. And I'm quite sure that it would indeed be so. I can confirm that. I think that overall, me and President Trump have built a very good, businesslike and trustworthy contact. And I have every reason to believe that moving down this path, we can come, and the sooner the better, to the end of the conflict in Ukraine. Thank you. Thank you.
There you go. So that is the interpreter talking about how Vladimir Putin agreeing with Donald Trump that if he were president, this war never would have started. I understand that is a moral victory for Donald Trump. Because he has been saying this, and conservatives have been saying this for a long time. The phone number, 866-90-RED-EYE. My name is Dan Mandis. We are live on Saturday morning. This is a special Red Eye broadcast. Usually it's a best of show on Saturday mornings. We are live, and the phone number is 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. For tonight only, my text line from Nashville is open as well. If you can't get through on the phone lines, you can just text in 615-737-9986. We'll return next on Red Eye Radio.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio, 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339, live on Saturday mornings. Red Eye Radio again. Gary and Eric, of course, will be back Sunday night, Monday morning, as they always are. But given the news of the day, which is, of course, the summit between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, we decided to have a live show for this Saturday morning. And so, yes, the phone lines are open and a lot of people calling in. So we're going to get to your calls in the next hour. And that phone number, again, remains 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. And also, if you want to text in, 615-737-9986. 9986. I host a morning show in Nashville, Tennessee on Super Talk 99.7. And we use that to text line for my local show. By the way, a special shout out to our friends in Washington, D.C. on WMAL. I would like you folks to call in and let me know how the streets of Washington, D.C. are here on this Friday night, Saturday morning. Would love to know your perspective on President Trump bringing in the National Guard to try to keep the streets of Washington, D.C. safe. Coming up in the next hour, I do have the latest on what is going on with the meeting between Trump and Vladimir Putin. A couple of other stories of note as well. It is all straight ahead right here on Red Eye Radio.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios. For Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Dan Mandis. This is Red Eye Radio.
866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number. We are live on Saturday morning. It is August 16th. I know it's usually a tape of Gary and Eric, but no, we are live this morning covering the meeting, the summit, if you will, between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. Now, I've got a number of stories that I want to share with you this morning. Of course, I'm taking your calls on the summit, the meeting, and that phone number is 866-90-RED-EYE. I'm also using my local text line from Nashville. I host a morning show here in Nashville on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So if you don't want to call, but you want to text, and I'm getting a lot of them, 615-737-9986 for tonight only. Now, a couple of other stories that I am following for you here on Red Eye Radio live on a Saturday night. I also want to hear from folks in Washington, D.C., from the 202. Now, if you are in D.C., maybe Maryland or Virginia, some of those surrounding areas, I want to know how the streets are tonight. National Guard is, increasing in numbers there on the streets of Washington, D.C., trying to keep the peace. I've got a great segment on that coming up. Also, if you are a parent or a grandparent, and your son, daughter, granddaughter, grandson, whatever, uses the platform online Roblox, you need to listen to me in the second half of this hour. Because if you don't know what's going on with Roblox, you need to. Because something horrific is going on. And a lot of people don't know what is happening, the dangers that are lurking on this. It's like a gaming platform, Roblox. It is like a big gaming platform. And odds are, if you've got a son or a daughter and they're online and they're building things and they're playing games, they're probably on this. And there's some dangers that you need to know about. So we've got a lot to talk about here on Red Eye Radio for a Saturday morning. Want to play some audio from Lindsey Graham. The networks had a myriad of analysts and guests, including Lindsey Graham on Fox News, talking about what is going on and their opinion on how the meeting went between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. For his part, this is what Lindsey Graham had to say.
The news you made in this interview, to me, is earth-shattering. President Trump said that Putin wants him to meet with Zelinskyy, that Putin is now apparently agreeing to a trilateral meeting between Putin, Zelinskyy, and Trump. That's the biggest breakthrough of the night. I've never heard that before. If we have that meeting, I think there will be an honorable and just end to this war before Christmas, well before Christmas. If that meeting doesn't come about, then I think Trump's going to have to use severe consequences against Putin and those who buy his oil and gas.
Well, and he is right. Lindsey Graham is absolutely right. I will disagree with him on the notion of this war ending in I think he said, a fair and honorable way. That went out the window a couple of years ago, as a matter of fact. We just need to get this war done. Donald Trump and Lindsey Graham was talking to Sean Hannity on Fox News after Hannity interviewed the president. Now, Vladimir Putin and Zelinskyy both have said, apparently, that they want Donald Trump in the room if everybody gets together for a conversation. Now, and I'm assuming if you're listening to talk radio, if you're listening to Red Eye Radio right now, live on this Saturday night, well, then you already know how the meeting went. There's all kinds of people that are debating whether or not this meeting was good on Trump or bad on Trump. Because isn't that really where we are in American politics today? Was it good for Trump or bad for Trump? At least that's if you look at the media and you listen to the media, that's what they will tell you. Oh, it's bad for Trump. He blew it. He didn't walk out with a deal. He said that he was going to have a deal on day one. On and on and on it goes. It is so tiresome. But here's the interesting thing. Did you hear what Hillary Clinton said? Hillary Clinton said on, I think this was either on Thursday or Friday, that if Donald Trump can actually negotiate a peace deal, that she herself would nominate Donald Trump for a Nobel Peace Prize. She was being interviewed by Jessica Tarlov over there. She's a host on Fox News, The Five. And Hillary actually praised Donald Trump for what he has accomplished thus far.
I actually was encouraged by the events of the last several months. First of all, the NATO commitment by individual member states to increase their defense spending is very welcome. It's something that prior administrations have certainly sought, and I think it's great that we are seeing these commitments that now have to be followed through on. Mm-hmm. The willingness of European countries to support Ukraine, and by doing so, buy American weapons in order to provide them to the Ukrainians. I think all of that is a very good signal that there is beginning to be a better understanding, both by the president and the people around him, as well as by the leaders of our European allies, that there can be common ground amongst us. And the kind of dismissiveness that we saw in the first Trump administration has been replaced by a much more obvious working relationship to the good of European security, transatlantic security, and hopefully Ukrainian security. So I'm actually encouraged.
Why is Hillary Clinton suddenly kissing Donald Trump's behind? That was shocking. Well, you know why, right? You know why. Because she's in the news once again because of the whole dirty dossier story. You know, the story that won't go away. But now they've got the receipts. And just, you know, to retrace, I mean, you know, the dirty dossier, Hillary Clinton financed it. Obama, Hillary, the DNC, the media, everybody, worked together, colluding together to try to torpedo Donald Trump's first term in office by setting him up, framing him for Russian collusion that ultimately led to the Mueller investigation and really tying him up for the first couple of years of his administration. So now that that's in the news again, and Trump and the DOJ is really looking into this and finding the receipts, suddenly she's being nice. Anyway, so Donald Trump, he was asked about this.
All right. Do you ever think Hillary Clinton, the author of the bought and paid for Russian disinformation dossier, the author of the Russia hoax, going into today would be saying she would nominate you for a Nobel Peace Prize? I don't think you ever expected that happening.
Well, you know, I don't want to be involved in that sense, not because of her. It's very nice. If she said that, it's very nice. I really appreciate it, too, actually. But
she tried to ruin your life, and in many ways, she ruined 3 years of your life.
It's kind of funny. Hannity is sort of like apoplectic. Like, are you kidding me? You don't see, this is my reaction to Trump and what he said, which is, wow, she's being really nice. And I was like, dude, she doesn't want your DOJ to throw her butt in jail, which, by the way, I don't believe that she's going to get thrown in jail. Adam Schiff, perhaps. I'm not so sure about Hillary Clinton, but...
Well, she made me stronger and tougher, and, we had...
You are way more forgiving than me.
Yeah.
Well, it was a sad chapter in our country's history. I will say that.
Yeah, it certainly was. I really was. I was surprised by the president's answer regarding Hillary Clinton. Brett Baer also played the audio for Donald Trump.
If President Trump were the architect of that, I'd nominate him for a Nobel Peace Prize.
Well, that was very nice. I may have to start liking her again.
So there you go. Very surprising answers from Donald Trump. I want to say hello to Frank, calling from Denver. Frank, appreciate you dialing in on this live Red Eye Radio Saturday morning. Go ahead, Frank.
Well, thank you so much for having a special program. I think it's very important and timely in light of the significance of this meeting that the media stay on top of it, and they have. And they've been minute to minute, second to second, which is amazing, and it's gone all over the world. I'm sure people in parts of Russia and some parts of China were watching that. It has great significance. I think that, and you're certainly a great stand-in host for Eric and Gary.
Thank you.
To me, one of the interesting things that it was a surprise to me was the people that Putin brought with him, the industrialists and the capitalist types in Russia, to see what they could cash in on. And It goes back to a basic human thing. Do you ever heard of a Whiff'em T-shirt?
I have never heard of that. What is that?
It's a T-shirt with the letters WIFFM. What's in it for me?
Yes.
So this goes everywhere across the world. The Russians and the Chinese right now are looking at what America's doing, Trump's doing, to stimulate the economy. Both of them are, of course, in bad need, and both of them, China more so than Russia, are more dependent on us, but they have only their ability to sell things. Russia has produce, energy produce, and China has labor produce. America has brain power and innovative power. And I think we must be very careful of how we let both of these countries access our intellectual property.
Boy, you are absolutely right, Frank. You are absolutely right. And here's the other thing, and Frank, I appreciate the call. I don't know if you just started listening, but that was a big part of my monologue in the first hour. Let me replay this piece of audio that dovetails right from what you're talking about. This is a Fox News analyst. His name is Edward Lawrence, and he was talking about just what you're talking about, which is what is in it for Russia. By the way, let's not forget that Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, also was there, meaning that they're probably talking about sanctions. And yes, Frank, in Denver, they're also talking about business.
Russian President Vladimir Putin, in his statement there, made a business pitch to the president. He came out and said that this agreement could create a business partnership with the United States. The Russian president went on to say he specifically mentioned the space industry where they could do some business. Also, he talked about high tech and digital trade going on here. Now, that could be a little self-serving, and I'm sure the Russian president is looking at China. They're looking at the United States and seeing those advanced chips that are going to China, the lesser advanced than we have here in the U.S., but still advanced AI chips. They're probably trying to get in on some of that. But the Russian president obviously would like to have a business relationship with the United States.
Yeah, the economy in Russia is not good, and obviously China is having their issues as well. And I'm going to be honest with you, Frank, and I agree with you. I don't want to get in bed with Russia. I really don't. I want to sanction the living crap out of Russia, and actually sanctions that will actually work, that will actually do the job of keeping Russia in its place. And Frank, I appreciate the call. Let's say hello very quickly to Dave in Dayton, Ohio on Red Eye Radio. Hey, Dave, how are you?
Hey, Dan. To echo the last caller, thanks for staying up live on this important night. And you do a great job filling in for Gary and Eric. But the reason nothing was accomplished in the previous administration is, I mean, can you even imagine Joe Biden trying to have a meeting with Putin?
No.
The empty vessel, and he probably would have forgotten his name in the meeting, and or brought Kamala along to laugh, during the whole thing. And, there is no respect level there until Trump, came into office again. There was no hope of anything being resolved during the Biden administration. So for the Trump haters to bash on any lack of a deal getting done today is a joke, because there is no hope of a deal getting done, when Joe Biden was in office.
Right. I mean, Joe Biden, Dave, and appreciate the call. Joe Biden wouldn't meet with Vladimir Putin. And as I said previously, all Joe Biden would do would cut checks. That is all the former president would do, is cut checks. And so he was never trying to find solutions. He didn't seem to care how many people died. He didn't seem to care how much of our taxpayer dollars were going to buy the weaponry for Ukraine or support Ukraine as a nation. He didn't care. And so for Donald Trump, you got to give the guy kudos for, at the very least, meeting with Vladimir Putin and trying to stop the killing. At least to me, that makes a lot of sense. But as you said, there's a lot of Trump haters out there tonight. And you know what? Haters going to hate. 866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number, 866-907-3339. My name is Dan Mandis. We are live with Red Eye on Saturday morning. It is Saturday, August 16th. There's a number of different stories that I'm covering for you this morning. And if you want to text in, we've got the text line open from my local show in Nashville. You can text in nationwide, 615-737-9986. We'll return next.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Uncompensated detention at docks frustrates drivers of all stripes. If you're an owner-operator, you have at least some control over the matter. Make the subject a standard part of your rate and/or contract negotiations on the front end. You can use your own numbers to calculate an hourly rate to compensate for lost income opportunity, as well as fixed costs, which don't stop when the truck stops. Those two elements of a fair detention rate were deemed appropriate by most of Overdrive's audience almost a decade ago. We've used income, fixed costs, and miles average of our owner-operator business services from ATBS's clients to compute an average $64 an hour detention rate then. And 10 years later, the figure is $83 an hour. Use your own numbers to calculate your rate. A simple conversation with any broker or shipper, or your carrier if you're leased, about what you're putting in the rate might yield results you don't expect. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more details on this and many other topics.
Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
Red Eye Radio, we are live here on Saturday morning, special live broadcast, 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. And you can text in if you like, 615-737-9986. We do have my text line from my local show. I'm Dan Mandis, and I host a morning show in Nashville, Tennessee on WTN. A proud, by the way, Red Eye affiliate. One of the texters actually said that one of the reasons why Zelinskyy is so passionate about really not accepting any deal, because that's really what's going on, is because once a deal is done and once peace is found, Zelinskyy will be voted out of office. Remember, and that's a very valid point. I mean, Zelinskyy implemented martial law. His term actually ended in May of 2024. But there's a lot of people that would say that if there were an election held today in Ukraine, that he would actually lose said election because people are fatigued by the war. And I've interviewed some folks that will say, you know what? The people in Kyiv and some of these other places, they're just like, okay, let Russia have these eastern territories. We just want to live in peace. We are tired of being bombed. We are war weary. And that's part of what's going on. And so to me, that is a perfectly legitimate opinion, which is the second there is peace, there would be an election, and Zelinskyy could be out of power. And I believe that Zelinskyy is absolutely power hungry. Great points.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app, available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
My name is Dan Mandis. It is Saturday morning, a live broadcast, Saturday, August 16th. And typically this is a rebroadcast of Gary and Eric, but because of the summit, the meeting between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, we decided to go ahead and have a live show. A little bit about me real quick. I host a morning show in Nashville, Tennessee, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And the phone lines are open if you'd like to call in at 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. You can also text in using my text line from the morning show that I host, 615-737-9986. That is for this morning only, and a lot of text messages coming in, and I really appreciate that. All right, so Roblox. Do your kids play or your grandkids play Roblox? Roblox. 380 million people play this. Millions of kids. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm a man of a certain age, and when I was a kid, I played Atari. You know, I can remember, begging my mom to go to the store to pick me up the new Pac-Man. Remember that? The new Pac-Man cartridge, you stick it right there in the Atari and you play till your heart's content. No predators, no creepy stuff online. It was all really easy. And I've always been shocked and surprised at how many people don't know the dangers that are lurking online these days. But if your kids or your grandkids play this Roblox, you've got to listen to this segment. Roblox is an online platform where creators can build their own games. And millions of kids go online and play these games, and they build games, they upload games, and so forth. But there is a danger lurking because there is a bunch of predators. And I know that we always hear, oh yeah, there's predators online. There's literally predators in this platform called Roblox. So many that today, or yesterday, the state of Louisiana has now sued Roblox because it says that they fail to protect kids. Now, I want to play some audio. It is alarming audio. It's actually a little graphic, as a matter of fact, but you've got to hear this because it's important, especially if you have kids or grandkids that play online.
I have just gotten a legal complaint from Roblox. I'm not even joking. They have sent a cease and desist letter to me, and they've gone ahead and banned every account I own. And you might be wondering, what heinous crime did you commit to possibly deserve that? Well, what I did was get predators arrested on their platform. Actually, 6 of them. I got 6 predators arrested within the Roblox community. Some of them, the crimes are so heinous, I can't even say here on TikTok or wherever this is going.
So this is a 22-year-old man. He sounds young, I know, but he's actually 22. His online handle is @RealSchlep, and he was preyed upon when he was younger on Roblox, between the ages of 12 and 15, he was preyed upon by predators. The guy was apparently a Roblox developer. And so now he has made it his life mission to try to trap the predators on Roblox. And so apparently what he does is kind of like that old TV show. I think it was called To Catch a Predator. So what he does, Real Schlep goes online, goes into Roblox, and he lures these predators in. And he catches them trying to do whatever horrific things predators do. And then he turns them in. And as you just heard, he has managed to have six predators arrested. Basically caught them red-handed. And he says that didn't make Roblox happy at all. Listen to this.
And the thing that's crazy about it is that Roblox has taken a more firm action against me, a person getting these people arrested, a person that law enforcement has made public statements saying that they are glad when people like me go ahead and give them information so that they can arrest these people. Roblox has sent me the cease and desist letter, not these predators. That is absolutely insane. And the other thing that's crazy about this is Roblox itself. It is a predator haven. There are games on Roblox like XYZ Public Bathroom Simulator. That's about 7 million visits, and the whole premise of the game is showering together with kids. That is the whole game. If you join it, you're going to see predators, you're going to see naked avatars, you're going to see people peeing and all this sort of weird stuff.
It's weird. It is strange. It is creepy. It is insane. And so Real Schlep gets this cease and desist letter. Basically kicking him off the platform. Why? You just heard it. Because he was luring and then getting the predators arrested. He's trying to protect kids, and Roblox, the accusation is, Roblox banned him for that. A cease and desist letter. Are you kidding me? 380 million people use this platform every single day. Maybe one of your kids or grandkids. And if you listen to this story, it's clear that what they're doing is they are favoring and protecting the predators and not the kids. This is why it is so incredibly important that you protect your kids, that you know what your kids are doing. CNN reads like this: Louisiana has now sued the online gaming platform Roblox on Thursday, alleging the wildly popular site has perpetuated an environment where sexual predators thrive, unite, hunt, and victimize kids. The lawsuit, filed in state court by Louisiana Attorney General Liz Muriel, alleges that Roblox has failed to implement effective safety measures to protect child users from adult predators. I mean, if you listen to Real Schlep, not only have they failed to implement effective safety measures, but what they're actually trying to do is protect the predators so they can prey on your kids. The Louisiana Attorney General said this in a statement. Due to Roblox's lack of safety protocols, it endangers the safety of the children of Louisiana. Roblox is overrun with harmful content and child predators because it prioritizes user growth, revenue, and profits over child safety.
If I was a parent and I saw that, I would be outraged. I would be totally outraged. And parents aren't aware of this. And it's so sad. I get emails from kids daily about all the horrible stuff that they're exposed to. I get emails from parents talking about what their kids were exposed to. And there are so many predators on this platform. It is actually unreal. So it's quite crazy to see Roblox go after me, a person trying to get predators arrested off of their platform, than the predators. Why? I don't get it. I don't understand.
I don't get it. I don't understand either, Real Schlep. The reason, by the way, you'll love this. The reason Roblox sent him a cease and desist, well, according to CNN, Roblox accused him of sharing or soliciting personally identifiable information. He was giving it to the cops because he was being preyed upon by predators. So he gives that information to the police, and then they meet in a park or whatever it is, and the cops are right there to arrest the predators. The story continues. Schlepp was stunned and wondered if Roblox was referring to the practice of turning over the information of predators to police. This is that Louisiana Attorney General.
I will not stand by and watch this company grow exponentially from exploiting children and facilitating child sexual abuse for profit.
Did you know this was going on? Are your kids on Roblox? Now, full disclosure, my stepson, he's 11. And he plays Roblox all the time. I had no clue that this was going on. Now realize there are an infinite number of games on Roblox. A lot of innocent games. And we watch what he does very closely. But if you've got kids or you've got grandkids, you really do need to keep a close eye.
So they've chosen profits over child safety. It's basically open season for sex predators on this app. For this reason and all of the others that we've talked about today, Roblox is violating Louisiana law. And that's why we filed this lawsuit.
Now, let's see if other states decide to come on board as well. Because they may, because, states, oftentimes they'll pile onto the same lawsuit. Listen to some of these games, though. This is crazy. You heard Real Schlepp talk about the public bathroom simulator. You know what some of the other games are? Escape to Epstein Island. Steal a Girl. And Kidnapper Story. Yeah. Those are some of the games on Roblox that apparently not only are they allowing, but also they don't want, at Real Schlepp or anybody else to try to get these predators off of Roblox. And Schlepp and others are, I'm assuming, obviously trying to protect the kids. Because Schlepp himself was the victim of a predator on Roblox. It completely transformed his life. And now his life is trying to protect kids. And Roblox kicked him off. It is an amazing story. If you haven't heard of this story, but you have kids or you have grandkids, check out what they're doing online. And by the way, I'll repeat what I said earlier, that it is up to the parents. I mean, yeah, Roblox should be doing everything that they can to keep the predators off. Clearly, they're not doing that. That is the accusation. But it's up to the parents. It's up to you. It's up to the grandparents. It's up to the family to make sure that your kids aren't doing anything untoward online. And so, in my family, and I'm going to get off my soapbox, but I've talked to so many people over the years, many, many years as a talk show host. I've spoken to so many parents whose kids have been victimized online. And unfortunately, parents and grandparents, they learn the hard way. So the only thing that I would recommend, and it's my opinion, that it's not just Roblox where you've got predators. I mean, there's all kinds of games that are out there. And most people have no idea what is going on these games. So just talk to your kids. See if they're on Roblox. Make sure that they know what to look for. Make sure they know what grooming looks like. Make sure they know what predators do. 866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number, 866-907-3339. We'll return next on Red Eye Radio.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
My name is Dan Mandis, live on Saturday morning, and Bill is calling from Fort Worth on Red Eye. Hey, Bill, thanks for calling in.
Yeah, I just think it's important that everybody realizes with this Roblox game, there's a side thing that everybody needs to look for on their kids' devices, and it's called a chat device called Discord. A lot of the things that they do on Roblox, they have these kids side chat in Discord. So while you look on Roblox for things that are wrong, don't forget they're sending them to side chat like Discord. So look at the Discord. If you got a kid that's got Roblox and Discord on the phone, that's an issue. My kids fell victim to this. It ruined our lives, a lot of problems, but just make sure that everybody understands to look at all of the avenues.
Bill, Bill, real quick, are your kids okay now?
Now, you wrecked our lives.
Man, I'm sorry to hear it.
But
all right, well, Bill, I appreciate the call. Your phone was cutting out a little bit, but I mean that's the thing. I mean, you just heard what Bill said. It ruined the kids' lives. It ruined the lives of the family. So yeah, again, and I just went on and on in the previous segment about Roblox, and now Bill says watch for not only Roblox but also a Discord as well. You can find me on the socials, and by the way, Bill, thank you very much, and hope the family ultimately is okay. 866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number. You can text us tonight only, 615-737-9986.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios. For Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Dan Mandis. This is Red Eye Radio.
For listening, it is Saturday morning. It is August 16th, and we are live broadcast here for Red Eye Radio. Typically, there is a best of show playing on Saturday morning. It is usually the day off for everybody at Red Eye Radio, but because of the news of Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin and their meeting, we decided to go ahead and do a live show. So the phone lines are open at 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. I host a morning show in Nashville, Tennessee, and my text line for my local show, I'm also monitoring that. So if you don't want to call, but you want to text, 615-737-9986. Now, apparently, I'm monitoring the socials, and apparently Donald Trump is on the phone with European leaders literally right now. Apparently, Donald Trump is on the phone with Vladimir Zelinskyy right now. And so the president is on this. And, you know, like Scott Bessent once said, and this was a couple of weeks ago, Donald Trump is like, 24/7. 24/7, 365, 21 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then he's got to sleep for like 3 hours. But I mean, from what I'm understanding, and maybe it's changed, but he was on Air Force One. He landed at the Air Force Base. He didn't get off the plane. He was on the phone with Zelinskyy. He was on the phone with European leaders. He wants to get this done right now. And so it's clear that Donald Trump, he wants peace. He wants to save lives. He has said this over and over and over again. And do you know what's frustrating? What's frustrating is the media is all in on just absolutely trashing Donald Trump and his performance today.
What struck me, Jen, in particular, was really just the looks on the faces of a lot of the American delegation here. Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, Steve Witkoff, who came into the room, then left quickly, then came back in. Leavitt appeared to be a bit stressed out, anxious. Their eyes were wide, almost ashen at times. Those were some of the sort of images that will stick with me as we leave here. This was not the way the president likes to do things. He likes to be the producer of this presidency. He got that in the first half of the day, but when he was behind closed doors with Vladimir Putin, it looks like he didn't come away with anything that he claimed he wanted. He said he'd go home unhappy if there was no ceasefire. They didn't declare one here today.
All right, so you have a media that is bound and determined to report this in the negative. And I do understand that's what the media does. That is, by the way, Peter Alexander over there at MSNBC. But I guess now all of the media, they are they can body language experts. You know what I'm talking about? Maybe suddenly they're all body language experts because even Jackie Heinrich, who is a Fox reporter, there was an awkward moment on Fox News when Heinrich reported what she thought wasn't the best look for President Trump. This was all over the internet just a few hours ago. Really was an awkward moment because Brian Kilmeade ultimately set her straight in what was also an incredibly awkward moment.
It was just very unusual, atypical, and I think we're all awaiting, the readout because the way that it felt in the room was not good. It did not seem like things went well, and it seemed like Putin came in and steamrolled, got right into what he wanted to say.
Wow. So the reason she says that on Fox News is because Donald Trump allowed Vladimir Putin to speak first. And that was her takeaway. Do you know what it's like? These people have never watched Donald Trump negotiate before. But here's the thing. There's video of Trump and Putin in the hallway outside of the meeting room where they had their big 3-hour meeting. And they're laughing and they're getting along fine. So I like how suddenly you've got all of these reporters that are now, body language experts and face reading experts. And so Brian Kilmeade clearly, Fox News, Brian Kilmeade was clearly annoyed with the reporter, Jackie Heinrich. They were going back and forth. And so Kilmeade in the middle of his show throws it to Jackie for the latest from Alaska. She said that clearly Donald Trump didn't get what he was looking for, this, that, and the other. And Kilmeade kind of set her straight.
And he also said in a scale of 1 to 10, said at the end of his written remarks, and he also said in a scale of 1 to 10, I give today a 10. So that's the president grading what he thought of the meeting. This, by all of our standards, isn't a news conference.
That's excellent news.
So did you notice how long that was where Kilmeade says, Jackie, the president was asked by Sean Hannity after the meeting and after the press conference how he thought it went. And Donald Trump did say, and I've got this audio, Donald Trump did say that he thought it was a 10 out of 10. And you can tell that 4 seconds of awkward where Heinrich clearly she realizes that she messed up and that the host on Fox News is really fact-checking her live. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to play the last couple of seconds again. I want you to listen to the awkward 4 minutes of silence and then listen to the reporter from Fox News as she tries to spin out of this whole thing.
So that's the president grading what he thought of the meeting. conference. This, by all of our standards, isn't a news conference. Because
that's excellent news, and exactly what we needed to hear from the president, because obviously there's a reason why he allowed things to happen the way that they did. He allowed Putin to address the world here and take the stage, even if there were no questions asked by the press. There was a reason for that. We didn't get a lot of explanation in the moment as to why that happened, so I'm happy to hear that the president feels good about the progress that was made today. He did say that he needs to call Zelinskyy and call up NATO allies and give them sort of a readout of what happened. But also we should note that some of the agenda didn't go today the way that it was expected to. We know that the president was going to have a one-on-one with Putin. It turned into a 3-on-3 that included Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Steve Witkoff. And then on the Russian side, Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister, and also...
So she kept, going on about how this was a total disaster for President Trump. Listen, I don't know if this was a disaster for the president or not. I mean, ultimately, we're going to have to wait and see. There was clearly enough of a conversation between Trump and Putin for the president to apparently still be on the phone with leaders in Europe and also with Zelinskyy. So clearly, Kilme took issue with her characterization of how things went with Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. And she thought that because Trump allowed Putin to speak first, that somehow Putin was steamrolling Donald Trump. And listen, just so you folks know, in case you don't know me, you don't listen to me host often enough. If I think Donald Trump is wrong on something, I'm like Gary and Eric. If I think Donald Trump is wrong on something, I will absolutely talk about it. But we just don't have enough information yet. But we've got all of these members of the media who, by the way, these same members of the media, that they all hate Donald Trump. I don't know about Jackie Heinrich. But that Peter Alexander at MSNBC, clearly. How about Nicole Wallace, also at MSNBC?
But that any day Russia could bomb anywhere in Ukraine. I mean, it's watching them scrape and struggle to get an American president who supported them to give them all the weapons they needed to go toe-to-toe with Russia. And to see all that potentially erased by an American president who just doesn't give a shit about democracy. He doesn't care about our allies. He doesn't care about a democratic allies' sovereignty.
Somebody might want to do a wellness check on Nicole Wallace, because she's not making any sense. She's babbling, actually, because if the president doesn't give a crap, then why is he spending so much time trying to get this done? He has flown. I want you to think about this. He has flown from Alaska all the way to Washington, D.C. And he's apparently still on the plane on the phone. Yet, according to Nicole Wallace, Donald Trump doesn't give a crap. And as I've said many times this evening, and I will continue to say it, who doesn't give a crap? Joe Biden. Biden didn't care because all he did was cut checks. He didn't try to find a solution. He didn't try to save lives. All he did was cut checks. And so you can criticize the president all you want for his performance, but don't say that he doesn't care. Obviously he does, or he wouldn't be there. And the president did do a long interview with Fox News and Sean Hannity. And I mean, there's a lot of talk. There's a lot of words. I'm just going to tell you, there was a lot of words. It was about a 32 minute interview. And the president said a lot of things that we have heard before. So I've taken great pains to find just the stuff that is relevant to today's meeting with Vladimir Putin. And the president says, yeah, you know what? I'm really trying to save lives.
We had a very good meeting today, but we'll see. I mean, it's, you have to get a deal. We agreed on a lot of points. I want to see people stop dying.
Yeah. I mean, you've had hundreds of thousands, over 1 million people are dead from this war. A lot of civilians as well. And so for the president, he does want to save lives. But of course, according to Nicole Wallace, he doesn't care.
Look, as far as I'm concerned, there's no deal until there's a deal. But we did make a lot of progress.
All right. So if it is true that Donald Trump made a lot of progress, he knew that he wasn't going to come back with a ceasefire. Do you know how he did? Do you know how he knew? He knew because he's got to run everything past Zelinskyy. So for Donald Trump, there's a lot of pre-sale. There's a lot of things that he does before going into negotiations, including talking tough. And then he gets into the room. He gets into the room with his guys, and he does what he can do to try to hammer out some sort of a deal. And so now what he's doing, he's got to go back. He's doing it right now, talking to Zelinskyy and NATO.
I guess somebody's going to go public with it. They'll figure it out. But no, I don't want to do that. I want to see if we can get it done. You know, it's not a done deal at all. Mm-hmm. And Ukraine has to agree. I mean, President Zelenskyy has to agree.
Oh, yeah. Remember that Zelinskyy, and that was leading up to this whole thing, that was a big deal, right? Zelinskyy yapping like a small dog, saying that he wants to be there, he wants to be there, he wants to be there. And most people that I spoke to were like, yeah, you know what? He would be too much of a distraction. He would fight everything. So Trump is trying to get everybody in the ballpark. Zelinskyy is saying that he's not going to give up any land. Putin has also said that he's not going to give up any of the land that he has taken over. So both sides have their lines drawn right there in the sand, and they also have their deal breakers.
Now it's really up to President Zelenskyy to get it done. And I would also say the European nations, they have to get involved a little bit. But it's up to President Zelenskyy. I think we are, and if they'd like, I'll be at that next meeting. They're going to set up a meeting now between President Zelenskyy and President Putin. And myself, I guess, I didn't ask you about it. Not that I want to be there, but I want to make sure it gets done. And we have a pretty good chance of getting it done.
Right. I mean, that would be historic. Vladimir Putin, Vladimir Zelenskyy, and Donald Trump all in the same room, trying to hammer out some sort of solution. I've got a couple of more audio bites from Donald Trump from the interview that he gave Sean Hannity after the historic meeting with Vladimir Putin. I've got more audio on that and a whole lot more straight ahead. The phone number, we are live on Saturday morning, 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. By the way, coming up after the bottom of the hour, all the latest from Washington, D.C. It's all straight ahead on Red Eye Radio.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
Red Eye Radio, 866-90-RED-EYE. My name is Dan Mandis. We are live on Saturday morning, special live broadcast here on August 16th. Apparently, Donald Trump is still on the plane. Apparently, he is so Trumpian. Alaska, all the way back to Washington, D.C., where he apparently has been on the phone that entire time, and he's still on the phone. And he's trying to hammer out a deal. By the way, as I said, phone lines are open. 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. And I have a text line that I use on my local show in Nashville, Tennessee. If you don't want to call in, but you want to text, 615-737-9986. And a lot of people are texting in, including one from Pennsylvania. 4143 says, if Russia gets to keep the ground they captured, that's where all the rare minerals are. So then the U.S. cannot go in and be paid back. That is true. There's a lot of those mines, a lot of those regions where those minerals are that Vladimir Putin and Russia, they do currently hold. And that is a big deal. Just know that this is a very big deal for Donald Trump, because he negotiated that deal with Vladimir Zelenskyy that we would partner in, trying to get all of the minerals and all that out of those mines. And if Putin has them, well, then now what are we going to have to do? Share them with Vladimir Putin? So that is a very big deal. And that's not all of the mines, but it's certainly, I think I read about 65 to 70% of the mines. And it depends on what minerals we're talking about and so forth. But yeah, that is definitely an issue. And thank you very much for texting in out of Pennsylvania, 4143. Ray is in Cincinnati on Red Eye Radio. Hey, Ray, how are you?
Hey, I'm all right. I just want to point out something that keeps on getting missed. The strategic area that was first taken by Putin when Obama and Hillary were in charge,
Crimea,
was Crimea. That's where World War I started. That's exactly where World War I started. And it's also been one of the most historic areas in the world because it's so strategic in relation to land and ocean and Black Sea access and all the other stuff. Everybody in the Navy, anywhere in the world, knows that is real prime real estate. And he was able to go and take that because of the fact that Hillary was so selfish that she wouldn't have secure communication links between her and Obama and anybody. So she was wide open to the world. Comey admitted it on the 5th of July and said there's 35,000 communications that were compromised by up to 5 countries. It was obvious. If you have real life communications, you can hear everything that the enemy or your adversary, because we weren't really an enemy at the time,
right?
The potential adversary is going to maybe do or maybe not do. You got it made.
Well, and Ray got to run, but I'll comment on some of what you said on the other side. Appreciate you listening to Red Eye Radio.
Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios. Now, for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, here is Dan Mandis.
866-90 Red Eye is the phone number, 866-907-3339. We are live on Saturday morning. It is August 16th, and we are usually in best of mode on Saturday mornings, but we decided to have a live show because of the breaking news nature of what is going on with the Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump meeting or summit. And I'm still seeing on the socials that Donald Trump has been on the phone with world leaders and also Vladimir Zelinskyy for, the last many, many hours. And so the president, of course, he rarely, if ever, sleeps. And he is apparently on the phone right now. And we've got some phone lines open at 866-90 Red Eye, 866-907-3339. I got this from Nick on the text line at 615-737-9986, open tonight only. Got a question, Dan. It seems like Russia is open to ending the war, but Ukraine is not. But all we hear about is sanctioning Russia. If Ukraine is the one that doesn't want to make a realistic deal, what's going to be done to them? Okay, so here's my theory on all of this. See, I think that Vladimir Putin doesn't necessarily want to end the war. I think that Putin is just, playing along, be perfectly honest with you. I think he's playing along because he knows that he is demanding things that Zelinskyy will never agree to. Because the things that, well, let me pull up my list. So here's what each side wants. You ready? Ukraine wants all of their land back, including Crimea. Okay, that's number one. Number two, Ukraine wants a ceasefire. Russia is saying, no, we're not going to do a ceasefire because ultimately that would give Ukraine the opportunity to, rebolster, reload their defenses. Russia has said the only way that they would agree to a ceasefire is if Ukraine pulled out of those areas that Russia has said they've conquered in eastern Ukraine. So Ukraine is not going to pull out of those regions or those territories that Russia has already conquered, because ultimately that would be Ukraine basically giving up on those territories. Ukraine, of course, as you know, they want to be in NATO. Russia says absolutely not. Ukraine wants security guarantees to stave off any future attacks. Russia doesn't want Ukraine to have any type of help from the international community. So obviously, there's a ton to negotiate. And by the way, there's a lot more too. But as far as what each side wants, I think that for Vladimir Putin, I think he is just willing to run out the clock on this and just take as much time as he possibly can. That's one of the things that Trump has said, and I mentioned this earlier. Trump has said that dealing with Putin is infuriating. Because number one, he's been trying to negotiate with him for how long now? And they'll have a meeting or a phone call or whatever, and then they don't hear anything. Or Trump will say, and you've heard this from Gary and Eric, where, Trump will say, we had a great conversation. We had a great conversation with Vladimir Putin. And then the very next day, like hours later, Putin is bombing the living crap out of Ukraine. So I don't really, personally, I don't necessarily believe that Vladimir Putin is really willing to negotiate. I think he'll go through the motions, but I do believe that there is a very strong possibility, and I don't know, and you don't know, and Donald Trump sure as heck doesn't know, but there's a strong possibility that Putin is actually playing Trump. That's why when Trump, if he feels like Putin is not really negotiating in good faith, Donald Trump has to absolutely obliterate not only Russia, but every nation that does business with Russia as well. So if you got a nation that is buying oil from Russia, well, then we've got to absolutely blast them with sanctions, secondary sanctions. Because that is the only way through the economy and decimating their economy. To me, that is really the only way that we're going to be able to get anywhere. And that's why Scott Bessent was there to talk about the sanctions. So for me, I just want, like Donald Trump, we all just want this whole thing to be over for many different reasons. There's some people that want this whole thing to be over because, quite frankly, they're tired of hearing about it. They're tired of the killing. Other people want it over so that it'll be a big victory for Donald Trump. I think personally it would be a victory for the world. But you've got two guys. You got Zelinskyy, who I don't believe that he is negotiating in good faith because he wants everything. He's not going to give up any land. He has to be in NATO at some point. There has to be an immediate ceasefire, all of these things. And Putin knows that if he just plays it cool and lets Zelinskyy be the problem child, if you will, well, then he doesn't have to do anything except, honestly troll and make it look like he is trying to negotiate a peace agreement when in reality, he just knows that Zelenskyy's not going to agree to anything. So he didn't really have to do anything, and then he looks like the good guy. Because ultimately, that's what Putin is trying to do, is avoid hardcore sanctions. Because let's be honest, the sanctions thus far have really done nothing. I mean, the reason why Vladimir Putin was emboldened to go into Ukraine in the first place was because of the failed pull-out of Afghanistan, and yes, also the weak sanctions of one Joe Biden. Oh, and by the way, let me do this real quick, because I think this is a big deal. I think it's a big deal for Donald Trump. So Putin actually said, and I did do this in the first hour, Putin actually said that Donald Trump was right, that if Donald Trump was president, this war never would have happened. So to hear Donald Trump say it, if, he had been declared the winner in 2020, if Trump was declared the winner in 2020, because Trump will say the election was stolen, that this never would have happened. And every time Trump says that, people roll their eyes. Every time Donald Trump says that, his enemies will roll their eyes. But you know what? Vladimir Putin confirmed, and this is a very big deal for Donald Trump. This is a very big deal for his supporters, because the man himself says that, yeah, you know what? If Trump was president, this war would not have happened.
And in the end, I would like to add one more thing. I'd like to remind you that in 2022, during the last contact with the previous administration, I tried to convince my previous American colleague that the situation should not be brought to the point of no return when it would come to hostilities. And I said it quite directly back then, that it's a big mistake. Today, when President Trump saying that if he was the president back then, there will be no war. And I'm quite sure that it would indeed be so. I can confirm that. I think that overall, me and President Trump have built a very good, businesslike, and trustworthy contact. And I have every reason to believe that moving down this path, we can come, and the sooner the better, to the end of the conflict in Ukraine. Thank you. Thank you.
So that was obviously the interpreter, and, she is interpreting Vladimir Putin saying that Donald Trump is absolutely right on that point. By the way, the audio with, I got so much input coming into me right now from the text line at 615-737-9986. Some phone calls are coming in as well. Guy called up and he was talking about Obama and Hillary, and they were in the presidency in the Secretary of State's office when Putin conquered, if you will, Crimea. All right. So remember, what does Joe Biden and Barack Obama have in common? They were both incredibly weak. And their weakness emboldened Vladimir Putin, because Putin knew that Obama, I almost said something I shouldn't say, that Obama wouldn't have done anything. And Obama didn't do anything. Obama sent them, blankets, right? Donald Trump gave them Javelin missiles. So when Donald Trump and Ronald Reagan both talk about peace through strength, both of these Republican leaders have proven that that is absolutely right. Absolutely right. Patricia is in Washington, D.C. Hey, Patricia, I appreciate you calling. I know that you want to talk about the situation with Russia, but can I ask you real quick about what is going on in our nation's capital as far as the National Guard goes? Like how are the streets?
Well, I'm thrilled with that because I'm a MAGA through and through. But I already lost CVS because of this smash and grab. And then you hear the Navy Yard area. Well, that's where my new CVS is, and that's under attack too. I'm so glad for the the National Guard is there, because I'm afraid of losing that.
Yeah, one of the things, Patricia, that I've noticed, and I've talked about it on the radio, is you'll have the left, and they'll always scream and moan and complain about the drugstore, the pharmaceutical, the pharmacy deserts or the food deserts or the whatever deserts. Well, the reason why there's deserts is because they get looted all the time. They get robbed all the time. And so they say, you know what? We're not going to bother to reopen. Why should we? And so oftentimes we see these pharmaceutical or pharmacy deserts or the food deserts. Well, it's because they keep getting robbed. And so it's the crime that causes these things. And so that's something that oftentimes the left will not admit to, is the reason why these communities are losing stores. Look at San Francisco. San Francisco, there's parts of San Francisco that are completely barren because of all of the crime and all the drugs and all of the homelessness as well. So, and one of the things that I'm noticing, Patricia, online is there are people who are saying, thank the Lord for the National Guard because we can actually go outside again. So I appreciate that comment, Patricia. Now, what do you got as far as Russia goes?
Well, I'm totally against Russia getting the mineral-rich area. Then I'm just reading more that they've coveted that since 2014 anyway.
Oh, yeah.
That has all the... And because I want us to be paid back for the millions of dollars in cash and equipment that we've given him. Plus, even before the election, Zelinskyy was talking about they would want us to help rebuild to billions of dollars. So I just don't want them to get that area back.
We need to get repaid. We need to get paid back, don't we?
Right. And see, the Europeans, when they started giving, they gave it as a loan. And here Biden just handed it over, So I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying too, Patricia, you are absolutely right. And I appreciate the call. Got to run to a break. This is Red Eye Radio.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
Red Eye Radio, and the phone number is 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339, and a lot of people texting in as well. And that phone number, one night only tonight, 615-737-9986. We are live on Saturday morning. You can also follow me on the socials, getting a lot of great tweets my way as well, or posts, if you will. And you can follow me on all the socials. And it is at Dan Mandis Show. All right, coming up next, I'm going to go and talk about Washington, D.C. and a few other things. I'll keep you updated on if anything happens with Russia and Ukraine. President Trump, I don't know if he's made it off Air Force One as of yet. He's been on the phone for hours, working late into the night, trying to find a solution. And so we'll keep you updated on all of these things and a whole lot more straight ahead on Red Eye.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios. For Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Dan Mandis, this is Red Eye Radio.
Phone number is 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. We are live. It is Saturday morning. And the network decided that even though we usually have a best of show on Saturday mornings, that the news of the day, certainly the Donald Trump-Vladimir Putin meeting, was enough to warrant and justify a live show on Saturday morning. So we are live. It is Red Eye Radio, 866-90-RED-EYE. Also, I'm Dan. I'm the guest host tonight in for Gary and Eric. They, of course, we'll be back on Sunday night, Monday morning. I host a morning show in Nashville, Tennessee The text line that I use for my local show is active as well. So if you'd like to text in tonight only, 615-737-9986. Now, it does appear that the president is now back at the Oval Office. As a matter of fact, I thought this is interesting. I think it's Posobiec. He is at the White House, and he has been posting some updates, and he posted this just a few minutes ago.
Just now leaving the White House after first round of the Abraham Accords. It is 3 a.m. Saturday morning, 22 hours after we first arrived here at the White House yesterday. See the West Wing there. President Trump did not stop working the entire time.
And he meant he said Abraham Accords. He meant the Anchorage Accords, which are now what some folks are calling what happened earlier today, the Anchorage Accords. And I guess Jack, apparently he went with the president to, it sounds like he went with the president to Anchorage, and he was on the plane back.
20-hour trip. Many people will say that's what they voted for. Starting to see early reports about discussions of an air ceasefire, possibly over the skies of Ukraine. So we're going to be tracking that, of course. Also, we're told that President Trump spent the entire flight back on the phone with NATO leaders, including an extensive phone call with Zelinskyy. So we will see how that goes. But to the people who say that this meeting was a failure, you just don't get it, and you probably never will. Anchorage Accords, round 1. Signing off.
All right, so we'll see. I mean, at least that would be a start, right? A sort of a air ceasefire, if you will. I think that would be, again, obviously a start. And if the president is having long conversations with Vladimir Zelenskyy, well, then that's obviously a good thing. So we'll have to see ultimately what happens. But I think for Jack, I think it's Posobiec, I'm not sure. But I think he's right. I think there's so many people that just want to see Donald Trump fail that they're refusing to cover this thing. What's the best way to put this? They're refusing to cover it in a fair way because they absolutely hate Donald Trump, and anything that the president does is going to be a failure. So we'll have to continue to watch and see what happens. I think this is clearly, obviously, going to be a working weekend for the president and the president's staff as well. And again, we'll continue to watch it. Washington, D.C., speaking of Washington, D.C., where the president is right now, you had the court battle earlier today, Friday, actually. I'm just so you know, I have been up for like 28 hours now because I got up at midnight last night, Thursday night, Friday morning to do my my local show in Nashville. And I didn't get to take a nap today, so I'm a little confused on I'm like in a time warp right now. Friday, there was a court battle. Donald Trump and Pam Bondi, they had named DEA Chief Terry Cole as the new emergency head of the Metro Police Department. This is all about Donald Trump fighting the crime in Washington, D.C. Lawsuits ensued, of course, and both sides have now agreed to return the force back to Washington, D.C.'s police chief, Pamela Smith. Now, Cole, who now has to go through Mayor Muriel Bowser before directing the Metro Police, but Bowser, basically, she has to adhere to requests made by Cole. So it seems like, okay, so you guys are kind of sort of in charge, but we're really in charge. We're going to tell you what to do. And so there's a lot of legal maneuverings, but the bottom line is, when it comes to Washington, D.C., is that Donald Trump is still in full control of the police force. He's telling Pamela Smith what to do, apparently through Cole. And so Terry Cole. And so this is continuing. We had a call from a nice lady, Patricia, in Washington, D.C. in the last hour, and she was thrilled by what's going on. This woman also was thrilled. People are posting on social media, and they're talking about how Washington, D.C., it's a lot more pleasant place with the National Guard now.
Finally able to chill at a red light with my window down, not worried about if one of them young is coming. Riding through the city, feeling more safe than I ever felt.
I mean, she loves it. She loves it. The streets are peaceful, finally, in Washington, D.C., at least in some places. And so that's a woman, I just played you the audio, who likes the fact that she can peacefully drive down the street with her windows down. So as the Democrats continue to do their silliness, screaming, shame, shame, as Donald Trump and the National Guard battle the bad guys in D.C., CNN, I don't know if you saw this, CNN was forced to report that, yes, the additional law enforcement is having its desired effect. I love this moment.
This is one of the areas of focus that we have heard a lot of concerns about, crime around Union Station, people who are loitering outside. I will tell you, as somebody who walks this route all the time, it does seem like there are fewer people just sort of hanging around.
Nuh-uh. Have a bunch of law enforcement and people actually start to behave. Isn't that what conservatives have been saying all along? So you have people in Washington, D.C., They seem to be obviously happy with the safer streets. I mean, really, who wouldn't be happy with safer streets? Well, of course, there's these people. Yes, indeed. So that is the protesters, and I'm going to assume that these are the paid protesters. The Democrats have been caught red-handed renting crowds like these people. You know, the requests apparently are up like 400%, says Crowds on Demand CEO Adam Swart. Now, this is my question. How do you know how much outrage there really is in Washington, D.C.? By the way, if you're listening in Washington, D.C., if you're listening from the 202, call us right now. Let me know what's going on. It's 4:14 in the morning in Washington, D.C. We're going to leave some lines open for you from Washington, D.C. The phone number is 866-90-RED-I. But these folks at, Crowds on Demand, they're saying, oh, yeah, you know what? 400%. We got all these calls. People wanting to rent some crowds. And so that's my question. And it is a legit one. Okay, so how much outrage is there really? Because you got all of these crowds that are being paid to be there, and they're being paid to sing badly. Then you have the leftist media, and they are trying to sell the outrage as well. And obviously, the leftist media, they're simply outraged because it's Donald Trump. So that doesn't count as legit outrage either, does it? No, it doesn't. The Democrats are outraged because, wow, it's Donald Trump. Again, it is Donald Trump trying to help people stay safe in our nation's capital. So that also doesn't count as legitimate outrage. In other words, how much legitimate outrage is actually out there? I mean, I'm sure that there's some, because there's people out there that like to commit crimes. There's people that are out there that like to run the streets. There's people out there that just like to do whatever it is that they want to do. But the people of Washington, D.C., at least some of them, have said that they're actually happy that they can walk the streets again. So if you have a 400% spike in protesters, you have the media that is trying to sell this apparently non-existent outrage, then all of this seems, pretty manufactured, doesn't it?
We know that there's paid astroturf from the radical left. They do this all the time with a lot of their phony protests. When you talk to some of these people on the ground, they don't live in the jurisdictions. They tell you they're being paid. They're bussed in, and then when the issue's over, they leave. This is part of the astroturf of the Democratic left. We're far too familiar.
I love that term astroturf. If you don't know what that means, and by the way, that is Congressman Byron Donalds. You have grassroots organizations and protests, right? Grassroots. Well, the complete opposite of a grassroots organization or protest is astroturf. And Donalds also brings up the point that these soft on crime policies, simply put, they don't work.
In the District of Columbia, if you're 22 years old and you commit a crime, they can try you as a juvenile. No other part of America does that, but they do that in D.C. That's the kind of stuff that needs to change.
All right, so I had to grok that. I had to fact check that one. 22-year-olds can be charged as a juvenile in extreme cases. In certain cases where you have somebody who mentally handicapped or some soft on crime prosecutor is going to say, well, this guy, he's got a really low IQ. Therefore, this 22-year-old should be charged as a juvenile. That does happen in these states. And that does happen in these cities, in areas like Washington, D.C. Pam Bondi has now assigned the head of the DEA, again, Terry Cole, to head D.C.'s emergency police. But that is all, again, caught up in lawsuits. And so now they've decided that even though Pamela Smith, the police chief of Washington, D.C., she is in charge of the police, she's got to listen to Terry Cole. Now, Wes Moore is a guy who a lot of people are watching as a possible presidential candidate for the Democrats. Now, he's black. He's the governor of Maryland. And he and Lawrence Jones on Fox News had a really good discussion about all of this. And again, yes, both Lawrence Jones and Wes Moore, they're both black, and they had a great conversation.
Governor, it's a different war now. There's more brothers dying here in these cities than overseas. So isn't it fair to have them there? And it's Democrats that agree with this measure. Don't take my word for it. The local cop there, the police chief, agrees with this. The mayor of the city agrees with this. And it's because people that look like me and you are dying.
Yes, indeed. So Governor Moore had what I would say, he's a Democrat, I'm saying that it's a BS-laden response. There's some people, often Democrats, and if they don't have a response to what someone says in a debate or an argument, they just get emotional. Because the emotion will serve as an answer that actually has no facts or reasoning behind it. Like this answer from Wes Moore.
No one needs to explain to me the pain that is taking place in so many communities. No one needs to explain to me the pain that is taking place in so many communities, urban, rural, and suburban, who are being besieged by this issue of gun violence, who's being besieged by this issue of chronically and generationally not feeling safe inside of your neighborhoods. And it's the reason that we have made it our top priority to make sure that people are feeling safe. But I can tell you right now, what people want more than anything in those communities is they don't want performative, they want performance. Right? They're not looking for someone to walk around with military fatigues and a big gun. They're looking for someone who actually understands how to make people feel safe and how to make people actually safe in their communities.
All right. So again, emotion over substance. Now, if you believe the crime stats, crime is down in Baltimore. If you believe the stats, they've got programs like youth engagement strategies, community-based interventions, group violence reduction strategies, and other things. However, Baltimore does remain the fourth most dangerous city in America. We are live on Saturday morning, 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. You can also send us a text this morning as well. I'm watching it. Really appreciate the feedback. 615-737-9986. We'll return next on Red Eye Radio.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on roadside inspections. Drivers must always be prepared for a roadside inspection. This means drivers should always have their personal, vehicle, and company credentials organized and ready, and having any shipment paperwork such as bills of lading or hazardous materials shipment emergency response information organized and ready for the inspection official. Just an FYI, the top 2 violations written against drivers every year, as well as during Operation Road Check, are log general form and manner and log not current. Both are completely avoidable if the driver keeps the log accurate, compliant, and current at all times. Having the vehicle ready for inspection involves the driver conducting daily inspections and making sure any problems that are discovered are immediately corrected. Vehicle readiness also requires the company to make sure that the vehicle is current on all scheduled maintenance and that the maintenance schedule is adequate. This will make sure the driver is being given a sound vehicle to start with. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. We are live on Saturday morning. The phone number is 866-90-RED-EYE, and I think this was a good call to do a live show. Typically, it's a best-of show on Saturday morning, but this probably was a good call because things are moving really quickly. So this is the headline from the New York Post. Axios is also reporting this. Zelinskyy says he will meet Trump in Washington, D.C. Monday to discuss all details regarding ending the killing and the war. Now, here's my thought on this, and I may be over my skis on this, but whatever. If the hour-long phone call that everybody's talking about between Donald Trump and Zelinskyy, if that phone call was an absolute train wreck, then Zelinskyy wouldn't be coming to Washington, D.C. on Monday. Right? I mean, if they're nowhere close, then Zelinskyy and Trump would be done, right? So they may be closer. This is just me talking here. They may be closer than the media is willing to admit. Or wants to admit. Zelinskyy spoke on the phone with Trump. They brought in other European leaders into the call after speaking for an hour. So Monday is going to be an absolutely huge day. We got a lot more on this. 866-90-RED-EYE. Text us. 615-737-9986. 615-737-9986.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
Dan Mandis here. The phone number is 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. We are live here on a Saturday morning, and the network chose to go live this morning. It's usually a best of because of the ongoing fallout and aftermath of the meeting with Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. And it's so interesting. Let me play you a couple of real quick sound bites that I played way earlier in the broadcast. First of all, the headline in the Daily Mail is this: President Trump is stunned as Vladimir Putin breaks into English to make a surprising invitation. Listen to this.
President Putin wants to see that as much as I do. So, again, Mr. President, I'd like to thank you very much, and we'll speak to you very soon and probably see you again very soon. Thank you very much, Vladimir.
Next time in Moscow.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I don't know. I'll get a little heat on that one, but I could see it possibly happening. Thank you very much, Vladimir, and thank you all.
Yeah, Trump didn't know what to do. Vladimir Putin, it was kind of like a surprise. He's speaking Russian during the entire press conference. He had an interpreter, but then suddenly he breaks out in English.
Next time in Moscow.
And it's like Trump had no idea what to do.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I don't know. I'll get a little heat on that one, but
yeah, and obviously the president didn't make any firm plans to go to Moscow. The Daily Mail has reached out to the White House for further comment on Putin's invitation. They point out no American president has visited Russia since Barack Obama attended the G20 back in 2013 in St. Petersburg. Many were shocked by the overture from Putin to Trump in the moment. One pro-Trump commentator said, "History is unfolding before our eyes." Now, if you're just joining us, it's been a long night. There's been a lot of news that's been going on. Trump left Alaska, and it was a long plane ride. The second he left Alaska, he is on the phone with Zelinskyy, Ukraine. And they spoke for an hour. After that hour-long conversation, then they brought in other European leaders. And so because you've got all of these conversations that are taking place, President Trump hasn't slept. Jack Posobiec is right there at the White House, and he says, at least this was, I think, maybe an hour ago, he said that the lights are still on and people are talking. And so it does seem like they're closer. It does seem like they're closer than the media is reporting. Because, the media, they have all kinds of fun talking about how Donald Trump is not going to be able to get anything done. I mean, there are a lot of media members of the media, and I've been playing them. I've been playing the audio where they are apoplectically reporting. There is no way that Donald Trump is actually going to be able to get some sort of a deal done. And I'm telling you, a lot of these reports, they're not going to age well.
What struck me, Jen, in particular, was really just the looks on the faces of a lot of the American delegation here. Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, Steve Witkoff, who came into the room, then left quickly, then came back in. Leavitt appeared to be a bit stressed out, anxious. Their eyes were wide, almost ashen at times. Those were some of the sort of images that will stick with me as we leave here. This was not the way the president likes to do things. He likes to be the producer of this presidency. He got that in the first half of the day, but when he was behind closed doors with Vladimir Putin, it looks like he didn't come away with anything that he claimed he wanted. He said he'd go home unhappy if there was no ceasefire. They didn't declare one here today. So
there you go. I mean, if they ultimately and here's part of what the media does, right? So all we've been hearing since day 2 of the Trump administration, he said he was going to have this resolved on day 1. And so day 2, and then of course, that is a talking point for the left. But if Trump is able to get something done here, I think it'll be a miracle. I really do. It'll be fascinating to watch how this whole thing plays out. Let's say hello to, this is Don, and Don is in Augusta, Georgia on Red Eye Radio. Hey, Don, how are you?
Hey, Dan, how are you this morning?
I'm okay.
Yeah, so Trump said that, it's now going to depend on Zelinskyy when they meet Monday morning. So my guess is what that means is that Putin has asked for, as he has in the past, for some property from Ukraine to take some of Ukraine's territory, and that Trump is going to lean on Zelinskyy in some way for that to happen. And my guess is that Zelinskyy will cave in at some point, in some way, to the force of Trump's will, and that's I believe it will.
Hey, Don, let me ask you a question. You think Zelensky's going to wear a suit when he goes to the White House on Monday?
I don't think he has a suit.
You know what? They'll probably, like when you go to a restaurant and they require jackets, and so you got to put one on. I bet you they've got a suit literally waiting for him when he gets to the hotel. Don, I appreciate the call. Thank you very much for that. And yeah, you know what? And it may be, I would find this hard to believe, but it may be something as simple as they allow Crimea to remain with Russia, but then you've got all of these eastern territories, and maybe you have them, and you know what? You've got Ukraine gets to keep some, and Putin gets to keep some. We need to have access to those minerals because that is something that we negotiated with Ukraine. Because we were talking earlier about how, that big minerals deal. Well, the Russians have some of that territory where some of those minerals are. And, honestly, those are our minerals. So that's got to be part of the conversation too, right? So, yeah, there's a lot going on. This is from the New York Post. Zelenskyy says he'll meet Trump in D.C. Monday to discuss all details regarding ending the killing and the war. Ukrainian President Zelenskyy revealing he'll meet with Trump on Monday in D.C. They spoke on the phone. Then they started bringing in all of these other European leaders into the call after speaking for an hour. Zelenskyy writing on X, Ukraine reaffirms its readiness to work with maximum effort to achieve peace. President Trump informed about his meeting with the Russian leader and the main points of their discussion. It is important that American strength has an impact on the development of the situation. So basically what it sounds to me like, and I'm trying to interpret what Zelenskyy wrote, is that what he wants to do is he wants America to lean on Russia to give up all that land, which is not going to happen. I could just tell you that's not going to happen. So I think Zelinskyy is the one that is going to get leaned on. I think he was right, that the caller was right. But remember, Zelinskyy and a lot of these Democrats, they were screaming up and down, right? They were screaming up and down that Donald Trump was going to dictate the terms to Vladimir Zelenskyy. Trump literally said, nope, you know what? This whole thing is now going to be up to Zelinskyy. It's his country. It's his war. And whatever happens is going to happen with the agreement of both parties. I've been playing the audio from Donald Trump as he had that interview with Sean Hannity. And we're going over some of the points. Who wants what in this whole thing, right? And there is a lot of negotiating points here. Trump, in his conversation with Hannity, they were talking about which side is going to have to sort of give more, if you will. Which side is going to have to negotiate more. And Trump is he's really trying to stay, what's the right word, diplomatic in this whole thing.
If you had to grade it on a scale of 1 to 10?
So I think the meeting was a 10 in the sense that we got along great, and it's good when, two big powers get along.
Yeah. But here's the thing. Trump goes and he speaks to Zelinskyy, and I've been saying this all night. Trump goes and he speaks to Zelinskyy. And then he comes back to Vladimir Putin. And Putin, it'll take 2 weeks, 3 weeks for Putin to get back to Trump, as it always does. Everybody's going to get impatient. And ultimately, as Donald Trump has said on many occasions, I have these fantastic conversations with Vladimir Putin, And then he goes and he bombs the living crap out of Ukraine, right? One of the questions reporters were asking Trump and also Vladimir Putin is, Mr. President of Ukraine, Putin, why should Donald Trump trust you? Now, that question was never answered. But the answer to that question is you can't trust Vladimir Putin. You can't. You can't trust him to negotiate fairly. You can't trust him to negotiate with, any real credibility because you don't know what he's going to do. You don't know if he's just trying to play the long game, trying to elongate things. You never really know.
Based on today, when you talk to Vladimir Zelinskyy, what's your advice to...
make a deal.
Make the deal.
Got to make a deal, yeah.
Well, there you go. That's what the president says. You've got to be able to make a deal. So I think that Zelinskyy, number one, he better wear a suit. And number two is it is going to be a full court press on Vladimir Zelinskyy. And I agree. We had a caller earlier said, Zelinskyy doesn't really want an end to this. You know why? Because the people of Ukraine, they've been under martial law. His term in Ukraine ended last year, officially. But because he implemented martial law, there hasn't been a presidential election. And here's the deal, and Joe in Odessa can back me up on this. Let's all be honest. Ukraine is incredibly, and I mean incredibly corrupt. Joe, thanks for calling from Odessa, Texas. Go ahead.
Thank you for taking the call. Yeah, look, Ukraine has been against the United States since the 1930s. They were aligned with Hitler then, and they went to war with Hitler and fought on his side against us and against the Russians. I don't blame Putin for not wanting to do anything with them. But, they need to smash them flat and get on with it. I think Trump needs to align himself with Putin in that regard because he cannot trust him. They're like Democrats. You can't trust them all. And until Trump dehorns the Democrats, he's going to have problems. Thanks.
All right, Joe. Thanks. I think his timeline, I'm no historian. I think his timeline's a little off regarding Ukraine fighting with the Nazis because Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union, and they were aligned with us, right? And whatever. I think he's a little off on that one. I'm trying to think back to history, but whatever. But he is right. I'm not going to argue history, but he is right. Oh, got to go to a break. 866-90-RED-EYE is the phone number. 866-907-3339. Text us in 615-737-9986.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
Red Eye Radio, 866-90-RED-EYE. We are live on Saturday morning, August 16th. By the way, a headline. Kristi Noem has had to temporarily relocate to military housing after yet another vicious doxing and death threats. Isn't that sad? Not entirely surprising, but it is sad. Apparently, she had to relocate her personal residence as she's facing an increase in threats against her and, again, vicious doxing, according to a department spokesperson telling Fox News Digital. This was last night or yesterday. They say following the media's publishing, I think it was the Washington Post, following the media's publishing of the location of Secretary Noem's Washington, D.C. apartment, she has faced vicious doxing on the dark web and a surge in death threats, including from terrorist organizations. Really sad.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.